On today's Join Us in France, visiting southern France in winter. This is Join Us in France, episode 148. Bonjour, I'm Annie, and today I bring you a conversation with Christine Hegerty from Australia, who tells us all about her visit to the south of France in the winter. They came in December 2016 and left a few weeks later in January 2017, which is kind of a strange idea. When she told me about this, at first I was like, you what? Why? And she told us all about it. And you know what? She's a really interesting and lively person to listen to. So the conversation went on and on because I was interested and I kept going. So you might have to pause this episode and listen to it on 2 commutes instead of 1. But it's very interesting and very novel. We haven't really addressed that question on the show before. I want to thank listeners who support the show on Patreon, and thank you for your continued support. It really means a lot to me because I've spent so much time doing this podcast. I also want to say thank you to Sarah Caviani, who sent in a donation via the Tip Your Guide button on joinusinfrance.com. Very much appreciated, Sarah. For show notes on this episode, go to joinusinfrance.com/148, the numbers. And to learn about our most current tour offerings, go to addictedtofrance.com and you will see a link to that on your show notes. Okay, so I'm talking fast today because I know it's a long episode. I want to give you a quick update on the election situation. As you know, we just had the first round of presidential election just took place in France. I'm recording this on the 25th of April, 2017. And the results were pretty startling. The biggest thing that people can't stop talking about is how come neither of the 2 big parties are qualified to move on to the second round. That's weird. It'd be like in the US if libertarians and, Greens, survived the primaries, but not Democrats and Republicans. That's kind of weird. So, yeah, it's... French people want change, and it looks like they're going to get change in any way you slice it, because the candidates that are left are a very young, 39-year-old, very handsome, I might add, man who has some political experience because he was a minister to François Hollande. So he was a minister to a socialist government, but he quit that job because his position in that government didn't let him do many of the things that he felt needed to be done very, very strongly. He felt very strongly about some reforms that France needs to go through, and the president wouldn't let him do it. So he said, well, I quit, and then he started his own political party. And strangely enough, the political party took off. A lot of young people are just, very enthused about it. And, he has some interesting points. We'll, live and learn. We'll see. I'm not a political analyst, so I'm not, I can't say much about what he's doing. But I mean, he's not frightening, whereas Marine Le Pen is, because she puts a better face on her form of extreme right politics than her father did, but pretty much they believe in the same stuff. So for me, it would be a disaster if she got elected, and so I hope the whole country unites behind this young guy, and even if he's untested, and time will tell. I had a few people ask me if I think there's going to be unrest in France following the election. I highly, highly doubt it. But of course, I don't have a crystal ball, so we'll see. It's never happened before. French people are pretty civil. We're used to a normal, election. You accept the results, you move on. Is it likely that Marine Le Pen will win? No. But it's possible. I think it's going to be close. I think, she's going to lose, but by just a few percentage points. I don't think it's going to be a landslide for Macron, okay? That would be nice, but I don't think that's going to be it. So, yeah, the country is changing politically. There are people, and if you take a look at the map of who voted for Marine Le Pen, it's mostly, if you draw a line between, let's be generous. It's between Caen, Caen, and Montpellier, diagonally. So that whole eastern part of the country, and the northeast and the southeast, that voted heavily for Marine Le Pen, and the other side of the country didn't. So, yeah, we'll see who wins. The polls are looking like she's not going to win, but nobody knows. So, and if you are interested in learning how elections work in France, there is a post that I wrote about this. It's on addictedtofrance.com, and then you click on France FAQ. I'm confident you will find it very interesting how different the American and the French systems are. All right. On with my conversation with Christine and her interesting visit to the south of France in the winter. Or in winter, as she would put it. Hello, Christine. Welcome to Join Us in France.
Hello, Annie. It's lovely to talk to you.
Lovely to talk to you too. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Great. Okay, so today Christine and I are going to talk about her vacation in France with her husband, John, who might say hi at some point as well. And the two of you are from Australia?
That's correct, yeah.
Were you trying to escape the heat? Was that the idea?
John will say he can take all the credit for making us take European winter holidays because he doesn't like the heat and the humidity here. And so it's partly because, he loves cold climates, and they're a nice change from here. Mm-hmm. So it's very hot and humid here in our summer. And we both grew up in Brisbane, so very near to where we live now. So it's a novelty to go to a cold place.
Well, yeah, and France in the winter can be pretty cold. What sort of weather did you encounter?
Look, it was pretty mild, to be honest. We flew in about a week or so before Christmas. We flew into Nice, and the temperatures there were really quite mild. So I don't think it would have been colder than about 5 degrees Celsius. But during the day, it was got up to about 15. Mm. It got colder, obviously, from there. And when we were in Toulouse, there was a real cold snap. It was probably around -5 to 0 when we were in Toulouse. Yeah. By the time we got to Bordeaux, the temperatures crept up a bit again. So, yeah, it sounds like it was a bit atypical, and people were complaining about it. They were commenting on how it was. It was a point of conversation. It's very
people
cold.
Complain about the weather all the time.
Yeah. So that was it. It felt a little bit, I think it was foggy from memory. I think a big fog hit, and it was a little bit bitterly cold. But look, really most of the time we had beautiful weather. It was sunshiny. We didn't get rain.
Wow.
So we took, rain jackets, and I think they only came out maybe 2-3 days maximum. No, the weather was good.
So why did you choose France to begin with? Do you have connections in France, or was it just a place you like? Or?
We just like France.
Do you speak any French, either one of you?
We both did French at high school.
Yeah.
And then just because we've had a couple of trips there, we've just retained a little bit of that very basic meeting and greeting and, restaurant French, and I'm currently trying to learn properly. Okay,
so let's get into the details of how your trip went, because you went pretty much from Nice to Bordeaux. So you went
That's right.
Across the country, I mean, not in a straight line, all the way through the south, pretty much, coast to coast.
Yeah, when you put it that way, we did. Yeah, there's a lot we didn't see. You know, we will have to go back.
Yeah.
It's a big place with a lot to do, lot to see.
So you flew into Nice?
That's right, yeah. Because we really wanted to concentrate on the south and particularly the southwest, I guess that was one of the first questions of our travel agent was, can we just fly into the south of France or do we have to go via Paris? Once we worked out we could fly into Nice, and then what we did was we flew out of Barcelona. So it was lovely. We didn't have to do any kind of backtracking. Mm-hmm. So, and then that just kind of gave us a start point and an end point, and then we just filled in the itinerary from there and did all the planning ourselves. We just, book the flights through a travel agent.
Mm-hmm. And did you arrange all your hotels yourselves?
We did, yeah. So that ends up being sort of my job. That's my forte, and John will delegate to me for all of that. He kind of gave me a bit of a short list of the places that were must-sees from his perspective.
Which were?
And then he had his heart set on staying in Carcassonne.
Yes.
He also wanted to see quite a bit of the Roman stuff and the Qatar. So he was interested in the Roman history, the Qatar history. And the sites, the Qatar sites.
Right.
And so when we do these, we've done these sorts of trips before where we've gone to Italy or we've gone to Ireland and now France in winter, and we spend a lot of time standing out in the middle of nowhere looking at piles of rocks. So I say our trips are we've got a funny name for it. So we call it the mega meals and megaliths, megalithic mega meals tours of Europe. So so he delegates to me. I think I'm the one who enjoys more spending all the time, on the internet and looking up accommodation places. So
what's your process to find the hotels?
Well, we are sort of pretty much fans of Airbnb now. So we do a lot of this trip was in Airbnb accommodation.
Yeah.
So we increasingly are doing that. So I guess that's if we know we wanted to stay in a particular town or city, then I'll go in there and just see what's available. And our process this time was that we had a hire car. We didn't have a car while we were in Nice, but we drove out of Nice. We needed to stay in places where we could accommodate a car, and that narrowed the field quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I would always compare to hotels, so I'd look to see what Airbnbs had to offer, and then I'd compare to hotels. So I'd look up the sites where you can read a few hotel reviews. We did stay in a self-catering apartment in Toulouse, so that wasn't an Airbnb, but it was a self-catering apartment. So, but
Which
I think
one?
pretty much.
Do you remember the name?
So it was just off Place du Capitole.
Yes.
In Rue de Saint-Rome.
Yes. Saint-Rome, yes. Was it on Rue Saint-Rome?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just really a stone's throw from Place du Capitole.
Yeah, right in the center.
There was free parking. We didn't have to pay for the parking. It was in the cost of the apartment for the 5 nights, but it was about an 8-minute walk away, and it was parked in another apartment building and one that had a lift where you drive your car into a lift, and we have never had any experience. So this is the first and only time we've ever done this. So that was scary for us.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't even know where that is in Toulouse. I mean, I've seen that in many cities. I didn't know Toulouse had that.
Host for that apartment met us there, so she was really keen she had to walk us through all of that. But yeah, so she basically jumped into the driver's seat, drove us in there to show us how it all worked, because literally this is something we have never done before, and you just drive your car into this thing that's a lift space that's just big enough to fit a car in it. You've got to close doors, open doors, So that one, that was the arrangement with the parking there. It was about an 8-minute walk away. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to Nice.
Okay.
So in Nice, you were there a couple of days without a car. What did you do in Nice?
And it was just so exciting to arrive there. So we had to do the long-haul flight from Australia to Zurich, and then that last little leg was from Zurich to Nice. So it was just, and it was 10 o'clock in the morning that we flew out of Zurich, and the weather was perfect, and we flew over all those snowy mountains. It was just so beautiful, just, heart-stoppingly beautiful. So we struck it lucky for good weather. We stayed in a nice place that was just 150 metres from the beach and about 100 metres from Cordes-sur-Ciel. So we were just like up the road from there. We were one street set back from the Promenade des Anglais.
Yes, yeah.
So so the main things we did there, and this was something I organised in Australia, so it was because we were arriving on a Saturday morning and we were going to drive out on a Monday morning, we thought that Saturday would just be arrival day. We'd just get our bearings, get over the flight, just go walking all around. And that night we walked to the Christmas village that was in Place Massena.
Yes.
But what we had planned to do for the Sunday, which really took up the bulk of the day, was we did a market tour and cooking class.
Oh,
so
that's nice.
And it was a lovely thing to do. So it really took a full day. We met our host, the person who's a cookery teacher, and she's a Canadian woman who's lived in France for 20 years, and she lives in Nice, and so she has a beautiful little cooking studio there. And so we met her and our fellow the other participants at the market, and the first thing she did was took us around the market. We bought all the provisions, we bought all the foods that put our menu together, and then we walked to her studio and we did almost a six course cookery class. A couple of really cool women from Texas were our fellow classmates, and they were just lovely company. So it was just a really lovely thing to do on arrival. Obviously Provençal foodstuffs.
Yeah.
So you get to try. There's lots of people selling the sort of Niçoise specialties, and we got to eat soca and all those lovely things. Lots of olives and honeys. Lavenders, herbs, all that kind of beautiful breads. So
that's very nice. And so, how did you arrange for that tour? Was that somebody you found? You found her website?
Found her website. Found her. Actually, I think I found a reference to her in it might have been a podcast, or then I looked up her website, and we actually communicated a little bit by email over the year before that, because obviously I was wanting to plan that straight away, but her calendar wasn't open yet for the end of the year. So we were really fortunate actually that because obviously her schedule is a bit shut down at that time of year.
Normally,
So we were really fortunate that these two women, these two American women were landing in town the same time as us and were keen to do the same tour and cooking class. So she had a nice little group with us. So
yeah, because that's the one problem with being in France at that time of year is, tourism is asleep, and so a lot of people who provide services to tourists, whether they are classes or museums or events or whatever, well, not so much is happening that time of year, really. Most of the time.
Not as much. Yeah. Right. So some. We found I don't know what percentage was sort of shut down, but certainly things are shut down a bit more than in the more popular times to visit. But then you've got the advantage of having the place a bit more to yourself, and and seeing the tourists who were around, looked like French tourists. So I think there are a lot of Spanish tourists. We think that was the primary. There were a lot of Spanish tourists around, but they certainly weren't. It's not a popular time of year for English-speaking tourists. So
right.
Yeah. So you have to be a bit more. You've got to plan it a bit more. You've got to plan it, and also, just the fact that the opening hours are reduced as well for certain museums and things. They'll be open, but they might shut a bit earlier in the day.
Right. So I'll put a link to this teacher on Join Us in France. So you'll just have to send it to me and I'll put a link to her.
I'll send you that. She's we highly recommend her. She's lovely. And because she obviously speaks French fluently, but she is an English speaker because she's from Canada, English speaking background. So it was just perfect to get insights from her about what it's like to live there. And she writes, she's published as a cookery educator and a food writer.
Nice.
So she knows her stuff.
Yeah.
So she We really recommend it.
It's funny because Elise and I, we're organizing Southwest tours, and that's one of the things we want to include is a cooking class. And we found a fantastic person. The thing is, she's not super comfortable in English, and so I mean, she will do some of it, but in English. But one of us will always be there to translate. But I think it's going to be one of the funnest parts of the tour because she has this beautiful large kitchen, and the menu she's put together. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's going to be really good. Yeah.
One of the things we cooked in Nice, one of the specialties, but we'd never heard of panisse before, and that was such a revelation. So made out of chickpea flour.
Ah, yes.
So panisse, P-A-N-I-S-S-E-S.
Panisse.
Panisse. You make it almost like chips, like fries.
Uh-huh.
So it's like if you make what's it called, polenta. You know, if you make a wet polenta, you set it, and then you cut it into fingers and pan fry it in olive oil.
Yeah,
it's just like that, only it's made with chickpea flour and water and salt, and that's all. And it's just absolutely delicious.
Yeah, I'm looking at a recipe right now, and it really looks like polenta.
So it's very much one of the Niçois specialties, like this soca that they make out of chickpea flour.
Yeah, the soca I've had, but this panisse, I don't think. I knew the word panisse as a name. Like, I know people who are, like, it's a nickname.
Okay. So, and the other thing about Nice is, definitely the Christmas market was just gorgeous, and it was vibrant and alive and really full of people, and just it was almost actually like, probably because we had just had a long haul flight and we hadn't slept yet. It was almost like a little bit of a psychedelic experience. It was kind of like visual sensory overload, but it was exciting. It was really exciting. And the other nice thing to do in Nice was to, at sunset, walk up the hill to the chateau at dusk and watch the sunset. It's beautiful. And in winter, you've got the snow-capped mountains on one side and you've got the sea on the other side. So just gorgeous.
Very nice. All right. And so from Nice, where did you go next?
So we drove to Aix-en-Provence.
Ah, yes.
So we had 2 nights in Aix, and one of those days was a designated Marseille day.
Marseille, yes.
Marseille.
Yes.
So we just had the arrival day in Aix. That was a rainy day. So that night, that was the only rainy day we had. So we just chose to have that as a bit of a quiet, restful night.
Yeah.
And the next morning we caught a local bus, leaving the car behind, obviously, leaving the car safely parked.
Yes.
And not having any desire whatsoever to drive anywhere near Marseille. But catching the bus there was so easy.
That was probably a really good decision, because driving into Marseille is not my idea of a good time. I mean, I can do it, but it's like,
why would you do it when you could just sit on a bus? And the bus are very comfortable, and they've got Wi-Fi, and, they're just nicely set up. So
you took a regional bus?
We took a regional bus, half an hour.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
So we did. So we had just a quiet day in Aix, but we did have a little bit of a walk around, the downtown, the old city there. Cours Mirepoix.
Yes, the Cours Mirepoix.
And we had Pont Mirepoix. Yeah. And we had lunch at the lovely. We had lunch at Les Deux Garçons.
Yes.
Which was really good. And we also visited the Christmas market. Was lovely in Aix as well.
Absolutely, yes.
That was what we did when we came back from Marseille, when we caught the bus back, where the bus sort of depot is there. We had to walk back to our accommodation pretty much through the Christmas market.
Excellent.
And that's a really nice one because of the regional specialties there. So the things you see there that you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
Yeah, this is the best time for Christmas markets. I mean, that's what's going on that time of year. So And in Marseille, did you do the typical up to the cathedral?
We up to the which? Sorry, I didn't.
To the cathedral, to the.
No, we didn't. We might have been atypical. No, we didn't get there because it was really just a day visit. So we had sort of between about maybe 10:30, and we were leaving as it got dark. But the thing that we did organise to do there, and this just became the thing that we were doing, was we had we organised a walking tour with a greeter guide, a volunteer greeter.
Ah, yes.
And so we needed to kind of do some things until the time that we were meeting her. And so before that, we went to, well, we didn't know exactly what we were going to do, but we just knew that we'd probably have some lunch, and we were still tossing up where we'd have lunch and whether we'd find bouillabaisse or whether we'd eat something else. But we ended up, we started off at the tourist office, which is, I think, as other trip reporters have recommended, it's always a really good thing to do. Just find that tourist office as soon as you hit the city centre,
yes,
Centre-ville. And the young woman there was just exceptionally helpful.
Mm-hmm.
She told us where a really good eat street was, where we could sort of get away from anything that was likely to be a bit of a tourist trap.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sort of from where so the tourist office is kind of like on one side of the old port, but we sort of walked through and went the other side of the old port, which I guess is probably you'd be walking in the direction of where the cathedral is.
Actually, it's the Basilica. I'm sorry, I told you wrong.
The Basilica, sorry.
Yeah, it's Notre-Dame de la Garde. It's the Basilica. Yeah, the cathedral is separate. It's also nice.
So the Basilica, the big one that you can see. So we saw it in the distance, but we went to a lovely. So we just went to the tourist office. We were there on a Tuesday, which is a thing for people just to be aware of, that it's, it is museum closing day. And so we arrived. So unfortunately, would have been good to go to Museum.
Yes.
Yeah, which is I think it's the Museum of Mediterranean People History.
What is it called?
So MUCEM, Museum.
Yeah.
Museum. But it was closed that day. But there is a really good Musée d'Histoire. The History Museum was open.
Yes.
So we found out about that from the tourist office, and it was literally just behind the tourist office. So we spent a good maybe hour and a half there. Mm-hmm. Then we went off and had our lunch. So we found this, the street is called Rue Saint. It's like Saint.
Yes.
Rue Saint. And so that's a really good.
Okay.
Rue Saint.
Okay.
So that's a really good, it's just filled with lots of lovely little restaurants that probably, if as a tourist you just hit the old port, you wouldn't know that it was there. But it's really just like...
It's parallel to the old port, yeah.
Yeah. And lots of restaurants were actually, we couldn't just walk in because they were full, but by just asking, okay, where should we go? We had one, we had one pointed out to us, and that was a really good find. They were just lovely. And so we didn't have bouillabaisse, but we had other delicious local foods.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John's just saying one of the best steaks he's ever had. He had a steak frite there. He had a steak frite, and it was delicious.
Wow.
Yeah. He's quite a carnivore, so he likes his steaks. So, but then we met our greeter at the Quai de Belge. K.
Yes.
Belge. So QUAI.
Le quai. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Okay. So we met her. She told us where and when to meet her, and so we met her underneath that mirror pavilion, which is sort of a bit of a cool architectural thing.
Yeah.
So it's like you no doubt know it. It's like a pavilion. It's like a roof. It's a sort of a roof on high poles, but the underneath it is all mirrored. So when you look up, you see a reflection of everything that's going on underneath. Mm-hmm. Designed by the same architect who did, he's English, so he did the one that they affectionately call the Gherkin in London.
Okay.
So that very, very modernist. Very modernist architecture.
Yeah, his name escapes me, but I actually know who that is. But anyway.
Yeah, Norman Foster.
Yeah, Norman Foster, yes.
The Norman Foster Pavilion.
Yeah. So
we met her there, and then because she had got a bit of a sense from us by email of what we were interested in and that we like history.
Mm-hmm.
She took us all through Le Panier, the historical
Le Panier,
district.
yes.
Le Panier.
Yes.
And that was just absolutely fabulous. I have very good memories of that. She was great. She was very generous with her time. She spoke English really well, and she just took it. Because she knows, we would have just wandered around just staring at things, having no idea what they are.
Yeah.
But
which is always a problem.
Exactly, where she could just give us the whole time. She was just bringing it to life, and she took us into there was a little like a museum of Roman antiquities that she just sort of took us into. We were the only ones there. They had just really interesting artifacts there. So the history museum itself is fabulous, but also this little tiny one in Le Panier was great. Yeah, it's a really interesting and quite charming area, that the old sort of centre there of Marseille.
Yeah.
Lots of lovely little artisanal workshops as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, we found it was just fortuitous because my John, as a hobby, does blacksmithing and knife making. So that's kind of quite what he's into, and we always have to seek out knife makers, and he always buys a souvenir, handcrafted knife, and we just happened to stumble upon a little, artisanal blacksmith's knife making shop, and
nice.
Bought a knife, and we bought soaps, we bought the traditional soaps, and it was just it was lovely.
Yeah.
Really pleased we got to just concentrate on that area.
And how did you organize that visit? Was it through the tourist office?
No, I did that one from home as well. So I think it was actually I don't know whether it was, I think it was in relation to the Join Us in France, probably the Facebook page. I remember reading someone had posted about it there, about the greeters.
Greeters, okay.
So I looked them up, and so Marseille has its own greeter group.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I just contacted them by email.
Yeah, many French cities have volunteer greeters who volunteer a little bit of time, and they're usually locals who will take you around. And I think it's fabulous. I mean, and it's a little bit luck of the draw, obviously, but...
it would be. You've got no idea who you're going to get, but we were just really fortunate to have someone who was just totally delightful, and obviously she spoke English really well, but her passion for history was really pronounced. So, and she just talked. She was a good talker. So we just walked and talked, and then we sat down with her at the end of it. There was a lovely little. I should mention it. There was a lovely little tea house called Cup of Tea. That's a tea shop and bookshop in that old district there. So we just sat down. We just bought her. We had hot chocolates, and that was how we sort of said goodbye to her. And she pretty much walked us to the train station where we had to catch our bus. So
very nice.
We just got on very, very well with her and exchanged our contact details, and
very often people who do this, they do it because they want to practice their English.
Yeah.
And so it's not that they're weirdos who just want to meet foreigners. It's that they don't have a lot of chances to speak English, and they want to practice. And And if they also love history in their town, why not?
Yeah. And I think that she was involved with the local community groups, so just a sort of a community-minded person as well. Mm-hmm. So that was really lovely.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, do you remember the name of the restaurant where you had the best steak, by any chance?
I do, because I've written it down here. Les Échevins.
Les Échevins. Okay, you'll send it to me.
I will.
You'll send it to me, and I'll put it on the show notes.
Well, because I had squid with it was a really local specialty with a parsley sauce.
Yeah.
And a leek risotto with scallops, which again I was in Aix and in Marseille. I both had these dishes that were like a lovely scallops sitting on top of a sort of a cooked down, creamy, cheesy sort of leek puree.
Yeah.
Just divine. So that seems to be a specialty of that part of the world
Yeah.
that I've never had before. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, and then from there you went to Nîmes?
We did. We went to Nîmes, and we had to make a bit of a decision there. In the planning stage, we had thought, will we drive via Avignon or we drive via Arles, so we'll get to see another town or small city. You know, at the 11th hour, we decided to drop that off the itinerary. And I think these are the things that you do when it's all become real. Like, it's one thing sitting here planning it at home and you pack everything in, but we kept asking everyone that we knew who was French or had been to France, do we go to Avignon or do we go to Arles? Which one do we fit in as a sort of a little side trip? And there were two camps of opinion.
Absolutely.
And
it just depends on who you ask.
Exactly.
They're both lovely. I've been to both. They're both lovely, yeah.
And then we dropped them both off the itinerary because we just thought, look, we were still getting used to driving. We were still getting used to driving. It would have, just one thing that people kind of tried to freak us out a little bit about leaving because it wasn't going to be a stay destination, because it was going to be just a somewhere en route from one place to another where we would have had to have parked the car, all of our gear, all of our luggage. And people tried to really freak us out about that. So we did have that playing on our minds a bit, like, will we be able to you know, I mean, even the Frenchman at the Nice car, you know, depot, the office there, said, do not leave anything ever in your car. You know, do not throw your... Yeah, they really tried to frighten us about that.
Yeah,
so
and I understand why they do that, because there are kind of, you never know. It doesn't happen that often, but every now and then some group of young men usually will decide, we'll just break into cars and gather whatever we can. And they're really hard to catch because...
Sure, that happens everywhere. So it did mean that we had all our luggage, and but it was more, I think, too, that we just thought, is it really the best way to spend our time? And if we're going to we were planning to have, I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 nights in Nîmes. I think it was 2. We just thought, let's just get there and maximise our time there. And it would be lovely to see another place, but are we just trying to do too much? So it's the whole thing of, we got to park the car somewhere, we'll walk through a market, and it would have been great. It would have been market day. It was a Wednesday, and I believe that's market day in Arles, and it's a really good market. So we missed seeing that, but then we thought, look, we're seeing markets in other places. Everywhere's good.
Yes.
We're not losing here, so
they're all
we
very
just
nice.
Lovely. So we drove to Nîmes and found, you know, where we were staying, and we were in a little bit of a suburban area, just probably about a 10-minute walk. We were in a quiet suburban area, about a 10-minute walk from the centre of town. So we did find that and settle in, and then have our couple of days in Nîmes, which we absolutely loved. Nîmes is just beautiful. Yeah.
So tell us more. What did you enjoy about it?
Very, very charming. It's really pretty.
Yeah.
We thought that the old city streets were just particularly lovely to wander around. And so, of course, we went to the Rennes, the Roman amphitheatre, and we had a good long visit there. We almost had it to ourselves. We literally almost had it to ourselves. So that's the other good thing about winter tourism. You can take really good photographs without other people, in that you can actually take photos of the site, the monument, the building.
Yeah.
So obviously the Maison Carrée.
Yeah, la Maison Carrée. Yeah.
The Carré d'Art, the Modern Art Museum, which is just there. You know, finding good restaurants.
There's another Norman Foster building right there, right?
Which one is that?
It's all glass, whatever.
Is that the Modern Art Museum?
It probably is.
It's quite a striking building, and it's all very glass.
Yes, and it's near the Maison Carrée.
Yeah, that's it. I think it is another Norman Foster building.
Yeah.
A couple of months have gone by now, and I'm forgetting those details.
Yeah.
It was. I think we split up at that stage, and John went off and did other things, and I decided I just wanted to immerse myself in the Modern Art Museum for a while. But the sun sort of set while I was in there, and so for photography, it was beautiful taking photos of Maison Carrée.
I have never been
also,
inside of the art museum in Nîmes. I've been to Nîmes many times because I have family right there. So,
yeah. But, it's like, I guess again, there's two camps, two schools of thought. Either you like modern art or you don't. and this had some of that kind of stuff where you look at it, some people would say, is it art, But
what is this?
Yeah, exactly. But yes. I find it quite charming, and I just found the architecture of that building and being in it and looking out because it is all glass and it was I'm a bit of a sucker I love a roofscape. I love photographs of roofs, and so you would get really good. You can go out there's a cafe there that's like an open. You go out on a balcony and you can kind of like hang off the side of that and take photos of roofs. But what was really lovely about Nîmes at that time of year, and given that it was very close to Christmas at this stage, we were only a couple of days, it was just pre-Christmas, was they had these beautiful light shows projected on the buildings. So, and we just stumbled upon that without really knowing that it was happening. Yeah. I think it was just like the end of the day, it was early evening. We were ready to sort of hit a bar and have a pre-dinner drink and a snack. And suddenly we thought there's a lot of security around here and there's a lot of people and they're all kind of packing in. All of a sudden they turn on this whole fabulous
light show or whatever.
Light show with a big soundtrack, and you got to see the history of Nîmes and from the Gauls through the Romans through to modern times, sort of like projected on the side of the temple, the Roman temple.
Oh,
so
nice.
Just fabulous. But just wandering through the streets, like suddenly you'd happen upon that night. There's a clock tower. Yeah. And same thing, they were projecting. So suddenly if you'd see a whole lot of people gathering and looking in one direction, there was another just stay there and the show's just about to happen. So
That's great.
So that was
right
fun.
Before Christmas, city centers, right before Christmas, they will all try to attract more people to come into the city and spend some money for Christmas, obviously.
Exactly, lots of shoppers. And that was where we would see a concentration of people. It felt like we weren't just in France on our own completely. Because there were lots of times where we just felt like we're the only people here. So, but of course, while we're in... Go ahead, sorry.
Well, people are so busy right before Christmas. This is not a time when French people would say, oh, we haven't ever been to the art museum. Let's go see that. They'll never go right before Christmas because they're busy doing other things. And
family.
There's family stuff. There's shopping that you have to do for Christmas. There's all that fabulous food you have to buy, obviously. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and of course, Nîmes was our base to go and visit Pont du Gard, which we did. So we drove. Took a morning drive to Pont du Gard.
Yes, it's not very far.
It's not very far. Well, it's
an hour, right?
It took us, how long did it take us? It took us about, theoretically, it should have been apparently about a 30 or 40 minute drive. I think it took us about 2.5 hours because that was one of our driving mishap days because we just kept making a big blunder of we kept taking the wrong exit off the motorways, and so we just had this tour of the toll roads. But these things happen. We just couldn't get it right. We just kept taking the wrong exit, and then we'd have to backtrack and almost back to Nîmes, and then once again we'll give this a go, and we'd take the wrong exit. So, and our GPS, luckily the car had a GPS in it, which was fortunately it was included in the car. We didn't have to pay extra for it. It was just there. We did some. I'll blame John. He programmed in Pont du Gard, but it kind of interpreted as a village near. It was a village that had the name, the word Pont du Gard in it. Probably, and so our GPS, when we finally got somewhere within striking distance of Pont du Gard, it took us like pretty much through farms, through fields, it felt like we were driving through people.
So there is a village called Vers-Pont-du-Gard,
That's the one.
VERS.
It took us there.
Right.
And it's exactly what you don't want to do. You do not want to end up the roads are getting smaller, they're tiny, and we ended up in the centre of this little village. But, and we kept thinking, this bridge is huge. Why can't we see it anywhere?
Right. Because the two entrances, you can't see the bridge from a distance
No,
anyway.
You can't.
No.
That was a surprise to us.
There's two towns that you can hit for if you're looking for Pont du Gard. It's either Romoulin, and from there you will have signs, or Collias.
Okay.
Pont du Gard is the wrong one.
Yeah, it was a very charming, totally charming, tiny village. Yeah. So by asking, this is where my little bit of French came in handy. Yeah. So I would just, a woman would be walking past with shopping bags, and I just wind the windows down and say, où se trouve le Pont du Gard? And they'd give us all these directions, and eventually we found it. So we had a lovely visit there, pretty much had the place to ourselves.
Yeah.
So we got lovely photographs of it.
But I would say if you're going to the Pont du Gard, tell your GPS to take you to Romoulin. That's Remoulins. And
very
once
good
you're
tip.
Once you're there, I mean, you could actually walk there. I mean, it'd be a mile and a half or something, but you will have signs because from there it's they want you to go park at the specific parking lot.
Yes.
It's like, when you approach an amusement park, they start putting all these signs to
yeah, exactly. There were no signs in our little village. But so we had a lovely visit there. That was absolutely beautiful, and beautiful in crisp, cold weather. It just was gorgeous. So it was the first time that both of us had ever been there, obviously. So that was pretty special. Mm-hmm. And we quite enjoyed wandering around the little museum there. Yeah, that was interesting. Mm-hmm. And then we drove to Uzès, and we had lunch at Uzès before we went back to Nîmes. So
which
that
is
was
also
nice.
a really nice little town. Uzès is
lovely.
Just a cute. It's great for a couple of hours. You have this lovely little town square with all the restaurants around. And
that's where we had lunch. Yeah.
It's really nice. It's very
lovely. It's pretty. It's just pretty. And it was very quiet and sleepy. There was still, we just followed our nose. Well, we basically just went to Place aux Herbes, and that's where we saw people, you just go to the restaurant where everyone's sitting because it'll be outside in the open, wherever the sun is hitting at that moment. So the French people are sun-seeking, missiles. So we thought if that's where they're sitting, then that'll be good. So and then back in Nîmes that night, we had a really big long walk from where our accommodation was. It was on sort of one side of the centre-ville, but we went to the Tour Magna, which is on the other side. So it was a really nice big late afternoon walk, and then back down through that lovely park, le Jardin de la Fontaine, and the Temple of Diana. So that was we got to see that late afternoon and into the evening.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so your next destination was Montpellier after that.
Exactly, yeah.
So a big city.
Big city, but a totally charming city. Totally charming. So I had been there before in 1986. So I'd stayed just outside of there, travelling with a couple of other people. John wasn't with me at that he didn't travel with me on that particular trip. Mm-hmm. So I had been there and he hadn't, but I couldn't really remember it. It was 30 years since I'd been there. Yeah. But we were both totally delighted with Montpellier. It's just charming. And we stayed in a fabulous Airbnb there that was very sort of the hosts were kind of artists, and so it was very arty. It was the house that they live in was once a butcher's shop, and it was in quite a cool little district, great neighbourhood. So we could walk very easily from there to the city centre. Yeah, and so we just treated that as a nice little cruisy place just to be for a full day really with an overnight.
Yep.
And wandered around, lots and lots of people doing their Christmas shopping.
Right. Montpellier is a lovely town where you can just, if you're only there for a day, you can just walk around. There's also the old aqueduct. I don't know if you went to that.
No, we didn't. No, we'd read about it, but we didn't get to it.
It's not near as impressive as Le Pont du Gard anyway. So
right.
if you've been to Le Pont du Gard, you're good.
Yeah, there was a lot. We just So we'd seen the big showcase ones. So now we stumbled upon, there was a lovely little museum of old Montpellier in one of the lovely old what do you call them, the Hôtel Particulier.
Yeah, an hôtel particulier. Yes.
Yeah. So it was a 13th century, in a 13th century old hotel, and it had a lovely kind of medieval look and feel about it. So we just stumbled into that one. It didn't look like it was open, but you just had to bash on a door. There was someone in there.
Wow.
And other than that, I can just remember just finding like charming little old sort of churches that had the lovely big creches in them with all the santons.
Yes.
And it was just very pretty. Yeah. And lovely. And that was where we had our first, we ate it. I feel like your podcast is becoming a bit of a big advertisement for l'entrecôte restaurant.
Yeah, so they should support the show, right?
They should. Because I had heard you talking about it, thought that sounds like John's kind of place. He loves a good steak.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of restaurants that were recommended to us that were actually closed that night we were there, being in the off season, so close to Christmas. But we just happened to walk past it. It was on our walking path into the city centre. And I said, oh, look, they've got one of them here. We were going to go in Toulouse, but look, they've got one here. Right. And so we did to it because it was open, and we liked it so much we went to the one in Toulouse as well. So
it's a good steak. I mean, the sauce is good, right?
This is very good. Yeah. So I think we'll also be on that mission to try and reproduce that sauce. So
you could try. You will find all sorts of recipes online. If you could find duck fat, I think that's the secret. It's the duck fat.
Yeah, duck fat.
Anyway.
So just charming Montpellier. We loved it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, would have liked some more time there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think you could spend a good 2, possibly 3 days in Montpellier.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, you have to.
We just didn't have that time. You do, and if you did have that 2 or 3 days there, then you could really go to the coastal sites from there, which we didn't have the time for, sadly. Right. But yeah,
you could go to Zest, which is really nearby. Yeah. I mean, you made some choices, and you have to make choices in that part of France. You have Camargue, that's right there. Which you bypassed, which is fine.
I had memories of that from 30 years ago. So fortunately, that trip that I did back then, and we stayed with a French friend, and he took us to, beautiful, gone blank on it now, the lovely little village with the beautiful little abbey that's set in amongst all the lavender fields.
L'Abbaye de Sénanque.
Is it that one? Or so John's saying in the background? No, not that one, but it'll come to me later. But, I had seen and I'd been to the beautiful, I'd seen all the pink flamingos, and I'd seen those things 30 years ago. So I had a lovely memory of them. But I guess this is one of the things, being there in the middle of winter, as winter had really sort of become established, is that the the daylight hours are shorter.
True.
So it does restrict a little bit that, like, I'm here, so I'm going to duck off and do this side trip and then come back. Mm-hmm. You don't have the daylight hours to do that.
That's true.
So confidently, yeah.
So from Montpellier, you went to Carcassonne?
Yes, yeah. So we had Christmas in Carcassonne, which was very, very special.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we stayed very close to La Cité, the old city. We were just literally a stone's throw from the old city walls. We stayed in an Airbnb there. Mm-hmm. That was when you went out into the backyard, the garden from it. That's what you just looked up at it, and there it was. So
nice.
So we sort of saved money on our accommodation. We saved some money by staying in quite affordable accommodation there. It was literally like sort of the garage, like the studio under somebody's house. It wasn't flash. It was just very kind of serviceable. It was pleasant, but it wasn't flash. So, but we had Christmas lunch. We made that quite an event, and we had that at the lovely one Michelin starred restaurant in the Hotel de la Cité.
Yeah,
I had booked that from home when probably about a month to 2 months before we left. I started sort of researching what restaurants would be open on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I was surprised that La Barbacane was open on Christmas Day.
It was open, yeah, wow. And it looks like it's a thing that they do. We actually met. Whilst typically there weren't other English-speaking people around us, there was a table of, you'll hear an Australian accent if there's one around, and there was a table of people there just near us where we heard the Australian accents. They were Australians who live in England. And this is one of their favourite places. So this was not the first time they'd come over there for Christmas to just have Christmas lunch there. So they knew it was good, and it was just really, really special.
Yeah.
And we think incredibly good value for money compared to what we paid for our special. It was almost like a 6-course lunch with wines included. That was like €79 per person. We thought compared to Australia, like Australian prices have become quite expensive, and if you went anywhere that was sort of like a hotel restaurant on Christmas Day here, you'd be paying more than that, and it wouldn't be the quality that we got that day. We got exceptional quality. We loved it.
Yeah, well, a 1-star restaurant in France, if you go for lunch, you can expect to pay 35 to 40 in the Southwest. I'm talking in the Southwest where I'm used to this.
Yeah.
So a nice lunch at a 1-star restaurant, it's going to be between 35, 45, something like that, okay. and a nice dinner. Probably 70, 80,
Yeah, so that's about the price that we paid. But, it was Christmas Day, and so we just wanted to, because it was just the two of us, and I think this was the first time in many, many, many years it was just the two of us for Christmas Day.
Right.
So we didn't want to be just sitting around,
Yeah, you wanted to do something special. Yeah, which really it sounds like it was a very good way to handle that.
It was lovely.
Being away from home on Christmas, being away from your daughters, you're like, I don't know, do we want to do this? But it sounds like you made the most of it, which is great.
We did make the most of it, yeah. And it was lovely then just to walk around the old city and to go into the lovely, the cathedral or the basilica, the lovely old church that's there. They were not. It was just very quiet. So I'd listened intently to all of the podcasts, your podcasts, where people talked about Carcassonne, and had heard that it can be, really, really, really super crowded in the on season. In the off season, it's really quiet.
Yeah, not on Christmas Day.
No. It was, there were just a few people like us who were just sort of, wandering around. Like everything sort of shut down a bit. We arrived Christmas Eve, and some of the shops were still open until the late afternoon, and we actually managed to buy some souvenirs just before they were closing. But then some of them opened up again on Boxing Day. So we bought a beautiful linen tablecloth. It's just on the table that I'm sitting at here. So we bought some ceramics and a tablecloth in Carcassonne.
Yeah.
And we also wanted Christmas night. We walked down to the Christmas market in Carcassonne.
Nice.
And Place Carnot.
Yes, the Place Carnot, yes.
And
now that's in the new city.
It's in the new city. So we walked to the new city at night on our own, just in the dark.
Yeah.
And walked back again afterwards. So we, as if we weren't full enough from our lovely flash lunch, we just had enough room for some wine and oysters down at the Christmas market. So
nice.
So very good. And we had lovely cassoulet in Carcassonne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Sounds like you really made potentially, I mean, spending Christmas Day in France, I would think would be a little bit nerve-wracking if you're not with, I mean, I wouldn't know what to do because I'm with family. So I'm glad you figured that, that was really, really good.
We like our food, so we thought, well, we'll just make lunch is the thing we do on Christmas Day. So. And got to try some of the beautiful, the lovely wines. It was just lovely being at a restaurant like that where you had a good sommelier. And he gave us good wine, and he was very generous to us. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, we were very lucky that we could sort of stumble down to the into the new city that night. But
and was the restaurant full on Christmas Day then, or was it?
It filled up. I think we arrived. Maybe our reservation was for 12:30 from memory, and maybe that first half hour it wasn't looking very full, and that makes you feel a little bit awkward. Because I don't want it to be just a couple of us sitting, but it really did fill up.
Yeah,
and so that gave it lots of atmosphere.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
It was lovely.
That's good.
So Carcassonne. And then there, of course, on Boxing Day too. Was it Boxing Day? No, it wasn't Boxing Day. It was the next day. It was I'm getting myself confused now. But anyway, we did. I think Christmas Day was on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe the next day, the Monday, we did get to go for do the tour of the chateau So we got to see the chateau and the ramparts, and we got to have a really nice tour of that. So it was open. That was good.
Yeah, very good. And so you heard all about Trencavel, the Count.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we didn't sort of join like a guided tour there. We just did our own thing. We had the little things that they give you where you wear it around your neck and you've got the earpiece and you listen to the soundtrack in it.
Mm-hmm.
So in that we would have heard about Trencavel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Trencavel. Excellent. So how many nights did you stay in Carcassonne?
That was 2. Was it 2 or 3? 2. 2 nights in Carcassonne.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to remember now. 2 or 3
It's
nights.
Plenty.
So.
I mean, it's plenty.
Yeah, it was for that time of year. I think we got to see what we wanted to see, and we felt well satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then from there, you went to Mirepoix.
We did, and that was where we got to base ourselves for a whole week, which was just lovely.
That's a long time in Mirepoix.
Yeah.
When you sent me your itinerary, I was like, a whole week in Mirepoix? Why?
Yeah, well, there's a lot you got to base yourself somewhere.
You do,
and so, and there's a lot to see in the all around there. So, look, who would even have heard of Mirepoix? It just wasn't on. We didn't know about it until we listened to the podcast that you did with Elise, and she obviously talked it up, and I listened to that, and I remember driving home that day and saying, that's where we're going to spend. That's the place where we'll base ourselves for a week. And we have no regrets at all. It's totally charming. Uh-huh. It's a really attractive little town.
Yes.
We had a fabulous, actually we didn't do Airbnb there. That was another place where we just had that was the other place where we had a self-catering apartment. And we found that one, look, they do list it on all the usual sites, but I think I just went onto their website. I found it maybe because they listed on Airbnb, but because they had a website, I got onto that and then contacted them directly. And so just made like a direct arrangement with the owners, and we got a good price for staying there in the off season for a week.
Yeah, we are.
And it was just really like one street back from the gorgeous little the town centre.
Yeah, the square.
Yeah, the square, and which is just so gorgeous. So we were just off sort of one end of Cour. In English, we say Colonel, but COLO. Colonel.
Colonel, yes.
Petit Pied. So it was Colonel Smallfoot.
Colonel Petit Pied. Excellent.
So that was our street was just off the end of that street, and it's an easy little walk into the main square, and just the architecture is just gorgeous there.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Yeah. And as our hosts, the owners of the apartment said, it's a town of many boulangers and coiffeurs. So it's tiny, but it's full of bakeries and hairdressers. So, but good. Yeah, really, it was fun just to spend a week there in our own little apartment, and that was where we didn't actually eat out at restaurants a lot. We self-catered. We cooked meals for ourselves at night, and we shopped in the local shops. And
yeah, I don't think there's that many restaurants in Mirepoix. There's probably maybe 10 of them or something like that.
Yeah, sort of mainly concentrated around the Place.
Yeah.
We were there for New Year's Eve, so the New Year's Eve evening we booked ourselves into one of the special, set menus, celebratory.
Okay.
And so we'll get to that, but that was kind of as tourists, that was a kind of a fun and an unusual thing to do. It put us out of our comfort zone a little bit. We had to kind of, because we were literally, we'll talk about it now, it was in one of the old, like a little boutique hotel, and they had a lovely traditional restaurant in the boutique hotel, and it was one of three places that had advertised
Le Réveillon. Yeah.
De la Saint-Sylvestre.
Voilà, le réveillon de la Saint-Sylvestre. Yes.
I can never pronounce Saint correctly. Anyway, Saint-Sylvestre. So that there were three places in town that were advertising like a set thing, and this was the one we chose. And we really were the only non-French speakers there.
Yeah.
And they didn't speak English. So we kind of had, it was sort of like a fun celebratory evening where we just sort of had each other to talk to, and we had to just do mime with, do nonverbal communication with other people. And culturally it was just, it was really like sort of like small town France with and it was a very, I think, they were having a very cultural experience that we were quite, sort of ignorant of, really, how does this all play out? And they put on, they had music, and every now and then everyone would get up and dance.
Yep.
We thought, we can't just sit here, so we'll get up and dance with them too. And they all knew the songs, they all knew they knew the moves, and they knew.
And they were all probably singing at the top of their lungs.
All singing along, and it was. Yeah, but it was a lovely meal. But it was a funny thing happened that night, because lobster was on the menu, and we had just eaten the lobster course, and then we noticed that one of the chefs was coming around to every single table introducing a live lobster. We had just eaten one of its, friends.
People are just cruel.
It was the lobster to kind of meet and hear about, and so we didn't have enough French to be able to ask her about it, and she had no English. So we just, met the lobster and took photos of it. And, we arrived there at 9:00, and we left at about 2:30 in the morning.
Oh, you
just
did?
As the party was just starting.
Oh, yeah.
They were serving coffee at 2:30, and then we were saying, look, we don't drink coffee at this time of the morning, and we're exhausted, and this is time to bail out and go walk home. But wow, it was a big night.
That's funny. We see those things advertised around where I am. I've never been to one because I have family and friends, so we always organize something between family and friends.
That's what you would do, yeah.
Right. But I do know a lot of people. It usually, I don't know what it was like in Mirepoix, but usually it's older couples who have their children are celebrating between themselves and want nothing to do with the parents. And so the older couples will just, let's go to a restaurant and join a group party,
Yeah, and that's what it looked like it was. They were, look, we're in our mid-50s, and we were amongst the youngest there. Right. There were probably, from memory, there might have been one or a table that had maybe some people our age, and then there was a table, there were a couple of, there was a younger couple, but on the whole they were a little bit older, and they looked really, well-heeled and, and we just threw on the best thing that we had to wear. But Yeah, it was just it was just fun witnessing that and being a part of it
Hmm.
because it's just something like we never do at home. We
Yeah.
don't do anything like that here. Yeah.
Oh, you don't? So what do people
Uh,
do if they don't have,
oh,
older people? What do they do?
like as in, like wouldn't go to a restaurant like that, like a formal sort of setting and have a fancy meal on New Year's Eve here. So,
But you don't dance to a song and singing about sardines all night, right?
no, I haven't done that. No, I haven't done that one.
Well,
So,
we have the silliest songs for parties like that. There's the sardines song. There's I can't remember any of the other ones, but there's a bunch of them that
right, and
everybody
I reckon
knows.
the music to us sounded very much like a real blend of Spanish and French, but that would be
Yeah,
because of the region we were in.
yeah,
So yeah,
a lot of
so
disco kind of thing.
and it was disco. Yeah, it was disco
Yeah,
versions of that sort of like sort of folk music, I suppose. The sort of disco versions of sort of what sounded like, I suppose it was Catalan. No, we went in Catalan area there, but yeah, very much you could see that the Spanish influence was quite evident.
yeah. Oh, Mirepoix
Yeah,
might be Catalan country. I'm not sure.
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
Occitania. I mean, today it's called
yeah,
Occitania, but is it Catalan country or not yet? I'm not sure where the border
yeah.
is.
Yeah, but it was fun. And so, like here, where we live, it's hot. It's hot at New
Yeah,
Year's Eve, and
yeah.
people are often having beachside. Where it is our holiday time of year. So, and we have the long school holiday, the 6 weeks that the schools shut down and universities are on holidays and everything. So people tend to hit the beaches here at that time of year. So, and there's lots of music festivals at that time of year. We live in an area that has a big renowned folk festival nearby.
Hmm.
So if we're home, that's the sort of thing we would do on New Year's Eve, go to the folk festival and, live music and fireworks and all that sort of
Huh.
stuff. But so this is just really something very different for us. But
Very different. Yeah.
it was
Very, very
very,
French. Very, very French. You stumble
yeah,
onto something very French.
yeah.
You probably paid what, 80 € to 100 € for the dinner?
Yeah, it was more expensive than the Carcassonne lunch.
Yeah, it would be. It would be
Little bit,
because
80 something euros.
yeah, because they would serve, like you said, lobster, probably foie gras, probably
Yeah, all of
oysters.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
all of that
all
sort
of
stuff.
the fancy foods come out, and
Yeah,
so they're
yeah,
expensive.
it was.
And
But
and
they did.
champagne and different
Champ-
wines with
Yeah,
every.
we got a little champagne cocktail, and other than that, we had to purchase the wines on top of, so that the wines weren't included. So it was more expensive than the Carcassonne experience, but it was just a different thing to do, and the food was lovely quality. But they probably about half an hour, at about 11:30, Madame came around delivering like party favors to all the tables.
Yes.
So we just had to amuse ourselves playing with, streamers and those blowguns that you blow. My husband, by this stage, had a bit of wine and he kept blowing little pellets at me.
Well, it's fun,
Sort of pelting me and blowing up balloons. And there was they looked like grandparents with a young granddaughter at the table beside us. And so she was there with the grandparents, and
Yeah.
she had a bit of fun kind of interacting with us because we were, throwing balloons backwards and forwards at each other.
Very fun,
But
very fun.
But apart from that, Mirepoix it was a lovely place to go, and for lots of drives off we did some lovely sightseeing around there. So that was our that was our Qatar country.
Exactly. You're right in the
visit.
middle of Qatar country
Yeah,
there, yeah.
yeah.
So what else did you visit that had to do with the Qatars?
All right. So we climbed Mont Segur, which
Montségur,
is
yes.
Segur. We climbed Mont Segur, which was great. That was definitely on the list of things that we had to do. So we're really pleased. We had a lovely day for that. And it was cold, crisp weather and frosty. Frosty on the ground, and you could see, especially as we got sort of further south into the Pyrenees area, you could see the snow-capped mountains everywhere. But beautiful, fine, clear day for climbing Mont Segur, which was great.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike, probably an
It's a bit of
hour
a
to get up there.
yeah, and very steep and
Yeah.
very yeah. One of our observation about France that's different to Australia is we said in Australia it would never be as how would you call it? In Australia they wouldn't have something like that tourists and locals are clambering all over without having they would pave they would have grab rails everywhere, and they'd have safety and security signs everywhere, and there would be warnings not to get close to the edge or you could fall off. France doesn't seem to do that.
No, and Montségur does it better than other places. I mean, there's other old Cathar castles because Montségur actually has a fee to get up, and all that. I mean, it's somewhat developed.
I don't think we paid a fee.
No, we got there too early.
We got there too early. We arrived before. I think I remember now there was something about that. At the time of day we arrived, there was no one to collect any money or to sell any tickets. We just
there you go.
we just climbed it. And we were there, we were just being very careful about watching about where we put our feet because, it is it is rough. It's a rough, walking track that's very steep. And, French people were just going past us with their dogs and with the babies in backpacks on their backs.
You won't be the only one going up, so it's okay. I mean, it's safe because you won't be the only person. If you hurt yourself, somebody will call for help.
Yeah. So that was, but up there, the breathtaking views, the 360-degree views from up there are just stunning.
Yeah.
We took the first sort of driving trip was we went to the Forges, Les Forges de Pyrène.
Les Forges de Pyrène, yes. Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, because I mentioned John is a hobbyist blacksmith.
True, yes.
We arrived there. This is another thing to, as a tourist to be mindful of. We arrived there just as the whole museum was closing down for lunch.
Yes.
It just shuts down for lunch. So we had no choice. We had to sit there and have lunch. And then because we were going on to something else that day. I can't remember, but we did. We had some time to see some of the demonstrations. We saw some demonstration of some blacksmithing, but we were the only non-French speaking people there. I think there were some Spanish tourists, but I think they've got French. They've got better French than we have, and so things like that. At that time of year, the demonstrations or the tours. We went to the Grotte de Niaux.
Niaux, yep.
Yeah, and the winter tours are only in French. So again, that was the thing that we did from Mirepoix, where we.
But isn't that fabulous, though? Even in French,
it's fabulous. Even in French,
you don't go for the verbiage because anyway, what they tell you is we don't know. We just don't know very much, So it's just. I mean, when they turn on the LED lights in there, you're like, oh, I don't know. I've been so many times, but every time it gets me.
It's breathtaking. We're very, very pleased that we did that. So we got to go into, a cave and see paintings, over 13,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun. And it's really quite stunning. So we combined that with visiting Foix.
Mm-hmm.
So we also, did a trip to Foix. We got there on a market day, and so we visited the chateau, and we had a nice
chateau as well. Yeah,
we climbed up the chateau as well. So that was a really lovely thing to do. Yeah. And we drove when we were driving to the Les Forges de Pyrène. Yep. We visited. I bought the book that's the book of the most beautiful villages in France.
Yes.
And the one that was nearby there was Camon.
Okay.
And so we went to Camon, which
spell that
was
because I don't know that one.
Camon.
Okay.
Camon. Would that be right?
Yeah, Camon would be Camon, but I haven't seen that one.
It's one of those, the most beautiful villages in France, and it was exceptionally pretty, but completely empty, devoid of people, no one home, no one. I think we wandered around. It was very cold, very frosty, and I think that we saw 2 old men and a dog. Right. So it was.
You might see a few cats, but that's it. Oh, they're inside.
They're inside. Oh, so they are, because you see smoke coming out of chimneys, so you figure that they haven't all just gone away.
No,
it's not
they're
like
all
they
inside.
Just left town.
This is winter. It's cold. We don't go out when it's like that.
So it was just pretty, the sun was shining, the sky was blue, but it was, so that's...
But we're not crazy tourists.
We just wanted we did a number of villages where we kept going to pretty villages and discovering no one home. And so after a while we stopped doing that because we just thought, look, really, it's not the time of year to be. It's after you've seen a few of them, we just didn't prioritize it after that because we thought we've seen a pretty village that's sort of got no one home looks like. So
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
So that was pretty much Mirepoix. It's a lovely little town, and we did lots of walking around there's a little river. We walked the length of the river. We just found things to do. We just walked around town, and you have to be a
bit of a self-starter because this is a part of France that doesn't get a lot of tourists. I mean, any time of year. I mean, it gets some, but not that many. And so when you go right after Christmas, it's like, it's empty.
New Year's Day New Year's Day is going to be a shutdown day of the year anywhere, in the world that we know. So,
you digest your booze and your food.
Yeah. But we did drive out of, so we arrived on a Monday at Mirepoix, and that's market day, but we decided to spend that half a day in Carcassonne instead of going to the market at Mirepoix because we knew we'd be leaving on a Monday and we'd get to see the market then. Okay. So the day that we drove out of there and drove to Toulouse was big market day. And so for anyone who's planning to visit Mirepoix, Monday is a good day to go because it just really comes to life.
Yes.
And the market is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You went to Rennes-le-Château too, Chris.
Yeah. So sorry, John's saying things in the background which I can't hear.
Rennes-le-Château.
Oh, sorry, and I left out. That's right. He's just pointing out to me that we did go to Rennes-le-Château.
Yes, Rennes-le-Château. Yes, another
Rennes-le-Château.
Scenic little place.
Scenic, beautifully scenic, and very interesting little place with all of its mysterious history. So, read up on the history and all the conspiracy theories and everything. But beside all of that, it's just a pretty place to visit. A nice little museum there. And what we would recommend that people do that we didn't do because we didn't know that this would be a good thing to do, take a picnic. Because the local tourists who were there were all just sitting around out in the sunshine, looking out at the beautiful countryside, having picnics. And
absolutely.
So,
I think we mentioned that in an episode we did with, that Canadian lady. I can't remember her name now. But in that part of the country especially, there's not that many restaurants. And so it's best if you pack a picnic. Because that's what French people do. Even if they're out visiting a place, they will bring their own picnic. That's that's just how we do it in the Southwest.
Yeah, which is a lovely thing to do. Yeah.
And
I think we drove around that day trying to find. We did find somewhere that was open for lunch, and I can't remember the name of but we were driving en route to Rennes-le-Château, and we just found it was a little tiny town. That had a couple of places open. So we had a nice little lunch there.
Mm-hmm. And if you find something open, stop there. Don't get picky and say, I'll check out the next place because there might not be a next place.
Exactly. Absolutely. That is so true. So, and look, you can't go wrong. There's still, and this is another thing that's very different to, this is where Australia is different. So you can go to sort of outback, remote, little town places, country town places in Australia, and the food will, you're not going to find anything very exciting to eat. Whereas in France, you'll still find something exciting to eat. The food is still good, even if it's, whatever we stop at.
It'll be fine. You'll find something very good. Okay,
so
and then you went to Toulouse.
And we drove through. We went to Carla-Bayle.
Oh, that's right. Carla-Bayle. Yes, we did an episode about that too. That's probably why you went, huh?
That's why we went. Because I heard that and I was saying we've got to go to this place, this artist village. It just sounds lovely. Yeah, again, lovely but very empty.
Shut down,
Very shut down. But it completely shut down. And it was really funny because there was John and I, and then we saw there were 3 French people. They were tourists. I think they were from the north of France, and I don't know why I got
They were lost.
mentioned. They were there looking, and we were all sort of getting. They had their phone out, and they were sort of like Googling to try and find a restaurant. And they spoke quite good English. So we were saying, "What have you found? You know, what will be open?" And so they suggested. They thought that the Grotte du Mas d'Azil.
Oh yes, the Mas d'Azil. Yes.
d'Azil. So the little town that's near there. So Le Mas d'Azil.
Yes.
They said, look, I reckon there'll be a restaurant open down there, and there wasn't.
No, I could have told you that. No, Mas d'Azil is like nothing. Not even in the middle of the summer. There's nothing there.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So I think we were a little bit hungry that day, but we did eat, but just for something to do because it was there. We drove twice through the grot. We just drove through it, turned around, went back, drove through it again, just because it was something to do.
You didn't walk? You didn't walk?
No, we didn't. We just drove through it.
Because when you walk it, it's kind of fun. It's like loud, and you also have there's a little museum off inside of the. Well, there used to be.
That. It is there. I did notice it. I can't say whether it was open or not when we
It might not have been.
Might not have been, but yeah.
This is the classic thing that French schools do. When school is in session, they will take classes through the Mas d'Azil to walk through there and inside of that little museum. But the rest of the year, there's nothing there. I mean, honestly, it's really.
But it's apparently one of the most. Yeah, it is one of the most touristed. The most visited sort of tourist sites in that region, and it's just like it's pretty awesome. But
it's interesting. And if you walk out and you can find all these fossils, this is why French school children go, is because if you leave the area a little bit, there's these paths where you can find really cool fossils, and so the school teachers will let you loose, and you can still pick them up. You know, it's like
beautiful.
It's open. Yeah, so you can just go and hunt for fossils.
Yeah,
but I mean,
that's fun.
Yeah. But for tourists,
so that was
so
good. But Carla-Bayle is just. I'll have to go back there in the
square is fine, and I'm sure there's pretty. Right. I'm sure if there's an artist market going on, it's nice. But when it's all closed down,
all closed. Yeah. So we drove to Toulouse, and so I've already talked about the experience of parking the car in the using the lift to drive into, but then we got settled into our lovely apartment there. We're very well located, just off Astute Capitol. With freezing cold, that was when we got the cold snap.
Yes.
And we love Toulouse. Toulouse is really fabulous city. It's a very cool place. We kept sort of saying to ourselves, this is like a little Paris. It's like a smaller version of Paris. So, that's all we thought.
Well, it doesn't have the Haussmannian buildings type things.
No.
But it is a major French city just like Paris. And so you have a lot of students, you have a lot of life.
Yeah.
Even that time of year.
The architecture is gorgeous, and certainly it's really striking, all the red brick.
Mm-hmm.
We loved it. We
How many nights did you spend in Toulouse?
5 nights.
5 nights. That's also a long time compared to. I mean, most people will spend a night or two, but no more than that. So you took your time.
We did, and we thought that there would be enough for us to see in town, but also to use it as a base to drive out. But we wanted to go to Albi. And we wanted to go to the Toulouse-Lautrec Museum, which we did do.
Yes.
So that was one of our day trips. And we wanted to go to Cordes-sur-Ciel, which we've heard about on the podcast. And so we did do that.
Yeah.
So again, that was the last pretty little shutdown village that we went to.
Yes.
After that, we said, this is just gorgeous. But we had wandered around it for about an hour and a half, pretty much on our own with nothing open.
Yeah.
We sort of then, I think we had thought, the day trip that we dropped off the itinerary was we didn't drive up to Cahors and to Saint-Cerc-le-Poppy.
Right.
We dropped that off the itinerary because we thought, no, we'll just stay in Toulouse. Toulouse is lively.
Yeah.
It's open.
Yeah, there's people in Toulouse. Cahors might have been but Cahors I mean, Le Pont Valentré, yes, is lovely, but it is a minor French town that it won't be as lively as Toulouse for sure.
No.
Yeah, and
Albi was lovely.
Right, Albi is fine, but Saint-Cyr-Clapoupy is probably completely deserted that time of year. I mean,
so we just
it's good for parking, though. It's really good for parking.
Okay, good. But I think probably what was a bit daunting too was that for us to go out for the day trips from Toulouse meant that we had to go and do that thing with the car. We had to go and get the car and take it in and out of a lift, and so it was a bit of an easy decision to make to just like leave the car there.
Yeah.
One day trip out that involved the driving, and we did that all by ourselves. We were very proud of ourselves. We managed to achieve that, but otherwise, Toulouse it's a great city to walk around, to see on foot, and museums. So we saw as many of the museums as we could.
Did you have a favorite? Did you have one you liked particularly? I mean, they're all sleepy museums for the most part.
They are. Well, we went to the Natural History Museum.
Yeah,
we went to
nice.
the Antiquities Museum. I think that's called Saint-Raymond.
Saint-Raymond, yeah, which I like that one.
Yeah. We obviously went into the Basilica, the Basilique Saint-Sinan.
Yes.
We're not a museum, but, that's obviously the thing that you would have on your list of things to do. Mm-hmm. We went to the, what else? I've got them written here over a couple of pages. The Musée des Augustins.
Les Augustins.
So the Augustins.
Yeah.
And les abattoirs, we went to that.
Oh, we went to the abattoirs as well. Wow.
Yeah, we did. And that was, we sort of walked across the bridge. So we walked there and back. Mm-hmm. That made it quite a nice long, like a good outing. We walked across the river.
Yeah.
And so probably I'd say, and we also went to... we saw Thomas Aquinas.
Yes, you did. He's buried at the Jacobin.
Yeah, so we went to the Jacobin as well. I think that was probably, I mean, the cloisters there are beautiful.
So I have to ask you, because Elise and I have a disagreement about this.
Okay.
I say that the cloister of the Jacobin is nicer than the one at the Augustin.
Tough call.
But she likes the Augustin better than the Jacobin, and I say she's a Philistine.
I don't know which of the cloisters do you prefer, the Augustin or the Jacobin? John's saying Augustin. I'm saying, all right, like we'll have a foot in both camps. I'll say the Jacobin. Look, they were both. Look, they're both lovely. So I don't know how you compare them really. The Augustin, the beautiful, the stunning room of the capitals in the Augustin.
Yes.
With the how it's all. The way they've curated it with those gorgeous kind of one half of the room has got the green lights over them, the other half's got the red lights over them. They're kind of like lamps or lights that are over each one of those capitals. That's a really stunning room. So yeah,
did you go inside the place where people get married?
No, because the day that we attempted to do that, it was closed.
Yeah.
We I suppose we put it off. We were doing other things, and then the day that we chose to do it, which was probably our last day in Toulouse, they wouldn't let us in there because it was closed. I think maybe a civic event or something was on. Or
yeah, they always use the room for different things, for weddings to begin with, and also receptions. Whenever the mayor has a reception for this or that, it's always going to be in there. And so you have to sneak in. You have to be really sneaky to get in sometimes. I can get in any time, but... Yeah. Yeah,
no, that'll be on the list of things to do next time.
Some other time.
Yeah. So it was a good museum city. I think one of my observations about the French art gallery museums, I mean, we know the art galleries are going to be good, but the museums, I just think the French curate really well. It's just very classy, very interesting, just really a lot of thought and attention to detail goes into curating the museum. So even the natural history one, that was a bit of a highlight for us because I just thought it was just really beautifully laid out.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
I love that one. been going to that one my whole life because my mom took us, and we
Right.
went with school growing up and all that.
School groups were there when we were
Yeah.
there. There were lots of school students. So,
But the way they redid it, it's been probably 10 years. It's so much, it's so nice. And thankfully, they kept the library the same.
Right.
But that's the only room I remember from my childhood. The rest of the museum was that kind of wood paneling everywhere in the olden days. But it's better.
It's lovely now.
It's much better the way it is today, I think. It's
lovely. So you'll be looking at, they'll have like something like a fossil, or they'll have something that's in a display cabinet, but your eye sort of is drawn to like a big screen that'll be nearby where there's all sorts of, like silhouettes moving. There's sort of visual projection things happening everywhere. It's lovely. So, well, so we really recommend going to the market, the food market in Toulouse, and the marché, and eating at the restaurant upstairs.
Yes,
that was a really good thing to do. And that was actually really fun. The day that we went there, we kind of hit there. We'd done other things, and we hit there just as it was lunchtime. So I think like the marché, all the food stalls, the providors were all closing up. So we didn't get to kind of have a lingering sort of like walk around the market. We just went straight upstairs to try and get some in a restaurant somewhere. And it turns out we had some friends there that we weren't expecting. So the first we kind of, joined the queue to get to a table at a very popular restaurant there, and we just saw this couple who'd been the ones that were hosts of our apartment in Mirepoix. We'd only seen them once, but they were an English couple, and they've lived in the area for couple of decades, but they were the ones that we met them. They gave us the keys. They told us how they showed us through the place, and then they left, and we didn't see them for the rest of the week. So, but we had met them, and then after we left Mirepoix and drove to Toulouse, the next day we went to lunch at the market, and they were in there having lunch.
Nice.
They'd driven there just to celebrate a birthday. And so when a table became available, it just happened to be right next to them. So it was kind of like really fun to feel like we're not on our own here.
That's right. That's
with
good.
some friendly faces, some people we can catch up with and have a chat and talk with. So,
Well, and the tables are really, really close together. So
really close together. And that little tiny wee kitchen, I just thought hats off to the chefs in there. They were just working so hard, and you could see they were just working, their bums off, and the fabulous food coming out. So
yeah. Do you remember which one you picked?
I
mean, it doesn't matter. They're all good.
It was. There was one, I think, that was more of a seafood specialty restaurant. It wasn't that one. It was the other one. It was next to the seafood specialty restaurant. I've written things down. If my eye catches it, then I'll tell you which one.
It doesn't matter. They're all pretty nice anyway. So
all the produce is coming from downstairs from the fresh market. But I just have to say, the other good food thing that we did in Toulouse was that's where we did Viz Eat, where we went to.
Yes.
We went to someone's home and had a home cooked meal with them in the suburbs of Toulouse.
Nice.
And really nice. Yeah. So once again, it made us feel a little bit like there were some people locally who we could connect with and kind of just be a part of their life for a night, and then part of ours. So that caused us to be a little bit adventurous, because we loved the tourist office in Toulouse, and we found them very helpful, and we bought our travel, our metro and bus pass from there.
Yep.
So we had our ticket that we could use the metro and catch the buses. So we were determined to use it. So we did an evening hike out to the suburbs by public transport, by metro and then bus and then walking. And the Viz Eat hosts thought we were a little bit brave doing that, and they did actually suggest that we should get an Uber or a taxi. So we got a ride back at the end of the night, but going there early in the evening, we were happy to go by metro and bus. But we had realised how bad we were at trying to pronounce. We don't have a Toulouse accent, and getting on bus and trying to tell the bus driver we wanted the bus stop, and I was saying Rigal, but she had no idea what we were saying. Until then, I had to say it about 10 times, and I was thinking I'm going to have to write this down and pull something out. And I think it was like Rigal.
Yeah.
she had Rigal. We were just not saying it right. So it's quite a strong accent, isn't it?
Yes, we do have an accent.
It's a charming accent. I like it, but I just couldn't do it very well. Yeah. So
Very
we had
nice.
a lovely home cooked meal there, and I think that's just a nice way to get to meet some local people. And so I recommend.
Lovely. All right. Well, we've been talking for almost 2 hours. I might have to.
Stop.
No, we're going to finish with Bordeaux, but I might have to cut this up into 2 episodes. We'll see. We'll see how we go. Yeah. I'll do 1 and 2. Like I can release 2 in the same week.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah.
All right.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, if people know where the pause button is,
Exactly. They get on board with listening to me.
Nah, they won't. They won't. Okay, so Bordeaux next.
Bordeaux, lovely. It was lovely. So we drove there I had a little bit of a sentimental reason to stop at Moissac on the way there.
Oh, okay. Why?
Just because I had been there 30 years ago. And I hadn't been there with John. I'd been there with my sister and brother-in-law. We were driving around France, and we just stumbled upon it and spent the night there and thought it was lovely. And I could just remember the church there as being quite remarkable.
Okay.
And they say that it's supposed to have the most beautiful cloister in the world, apparently.
Really?
So that's what they say. But so I said to John, we must stop there. We'll stop there for a coffee break on the way to Bordeaux. And as it turns out, the cloister was not open on a Saturday morning, so we didn't get to. But you could walk into the church. It's got these gorgeous, lovely, ornate carved wooden doors, and then all the lovely carved stonework around the doors.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a half stone, half brick church. The entrance is stone, but the walls are brick. It's an interesting church.
It is. So that was it. Just made a nice little and there are a couple of cafes open in the place there. So we had a nice little pastry and a coffee.
Yeah.
And so we basically drove to Bordeaux to drop off the car and then to be free of the car while we were in Bordeaux. So that was where we left it.
See. Okay.
So then we did Bordeaux on foot, and we stayed in a lovely area that was very much the old city area, plus Camille Julien.
Okay. I don't know Bordeaux very well, so I don't know that plus, but
okay. Well, that's quite a very nice district.
Central,
very interesting. Yeah, central, and sort of pretty much walk to everything from there. So we just had our last couple of days of the French trip there in Bordeaux, and loved it. So I say we swapped the red brick of Toulouse for the blonde stone of Bordeaux.
Exactly.
And, It was vibrant. There were lots of the area where we stayed. I think of Quartier Saint-Paul.
Okay.
So it was around there.
Okay.
So it's located between the cathedral, the river, and the theatre. So it was a really vibrant area with lots of students and young people, and and it just seemed like thousands and thousands and thousands upon thousands of people sort of shopping. You could be in one area, you'd feel like there was one neighbourhood, you'd feel like no one around, then you turn a corner and you'd go into these shopping streets and they were packed. So that's where all the people were in France.
Yeah, Sainte Catherine. Well, because probably by then you were close to the solde, to the sales. How late is this?
Yes. This was, now we were getting to be about the I think it was around the 7th, getting into the second week of January, sort of 7th
so probably
January.
sold or pre-sold or something. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's why it's a big sales event, and so people go into the cities.
Enthusiastic shoppers, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just did, well, we walked around. I suppose we just had the 2 day. We only had 2 nights. So, and we left, the day that we left, we caught it was early in the morning that we caught the bus down to Spain. So we had to get an early morning bus. So we had to really make the most. So that departure day wasn't a Bordeaux day. It was a leaving day quite early. Mm-hmm. We had to maximise the amount of time that we had there. Of course, we went into the gorgeous Saint-André, the cathedral.
Yes.
And we went to the market. There was we went to like the flea market on the Sunday morning.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's the Church of Saint-Michel.
Okay.
And it's a really big flea market. So it's one of the biggest ones I've seen. It covers quite a lot of a big territory, and there are lots and lots and lots of people with little stalls there.
So was it a flea market like with a lot of furniture and almost flea but antique, or is it flea market?
Some of that, but like sort of bric-a-brac sort of stuff.
Okay.
Everything from furniture, bric-a-brac, books, lots and lots and lots of books. On this trip we would always seek out a book market because that's another, I guess, a sort of a interest area for my husband. He likes to collect old books. Mm-hmm. So he spent a lot of time browsing at the old books there. Mm-hmm. But like vinyl records, jewelry, you name it, clothes, secondhand clothes. So that was we killed a few hours there and had lunch. We had oysters at the Marché des Capucins.
Yes.
The covered market, the food market. That was a nice one. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah, we caught what we did was we could have walked to the new Cité du Vin.
Right.
La Cité du Vin. We could have walked there, but we caught the ferry up there. So that was just a nice thing to do. I would recommend that, just the local river transport, because you just get a really nice perspective on the city going up the river, the number of however many stops it was, and also then you're approaching that sort of, the crazy architecture that it is. It looks like a big wine decanter, but and it's all gold and shimmery.
It looks like a big wine what?
Like a wine decanter, like the thing you pour, like a big glass sort of.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how to, like a thing you pour a bottle of wine into to sort of aerate it.
Yeah. I know what it is. I didn't understand what you were saying.
Yeah. I think that's what I think that inspired the architecture of it from, that's what I remember reading about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't visited it yet. I haven't seen it. I know that it's a little bit off of the main center, that you can walk.
It is. But you can walk or go by the ferry. The ferry was a good thing to do. And then we just caught a tram back.
It's like a city bus, but it's a ferry.
It's like a city bus, but it's a ferry.
Okay.
And I think that the same tickets that you use on the tram and because Bordeaux has trams.
Yep.
So we caught the tram back. And so with our visit to the La Cité du Vin, we didn't buy a ticket and do an organised tour there. We basically just, caught the ferry up there, walked into it, walked around all the bits you could see that you didn't have to actually, purchase a tour, just the bits that were open. And so that was interesting enough. We didn't put in a lot of time there. We just wanted to kind of to see it. And then we headed back. So I believe that the further up, you can kind of walk up the stairs there without having purchased a ticket, and you can sort of look out windows and get a bit of a view. But I think if you go right up the top, you get a really lovely view. But we wanted to get back and climb the bell tower of Saint-André.
Yes.
So that for the view, that's
nice, isn't it?
That's the winner.
Yeah.
the view, lots and lots and lots and lots of steps to get up there. But the view is breathtaking, especially at dusk, at sunset time. That was really lovely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing that people like to do in the evening in Bordeaux is to go to the Place de la Bourse to see the mirror, the water mirror.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That looks also very nice. But
yeah. So that's We as I said, we had a short amount of time.
Yeah, you weren't there very long. You weren't there.
We weren't there very long.
Yeah.
But once again, just long enough to do a bit of nice eating, to find some good restaurants, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's good. That was good.
You had yourself a really good long visit in winter of all times. You wouldn't think, as a French person, we don't think that Australians are gonna come visit France in the middle of the winter. But it makes sense. It really makes sense.
It does. It's our holiday time, so that's the time that we're off all around the world, and a lot of the world is cold at that time of year, whereas it's not for us. It's really, really hot here.
Yeah.
We've come back to heat wave weather, and it just has been unrelenting heat wave ever since we've got home. So we're a bit over it, the heat. So it was actually a nice little kind of respite from the heat to go and be in a cold place for a while.
Yeah, because it's true that anytime I talk to anybody who's from Australia about weather in France, they say how cold they got. And I think it's just because Australians are so used to the heat that they come to France and they're like, we're freezing.
But I think the north is obviously going to be more cold in winter than the south, and the south is milder.
It's milder usually. We had a few days of cold this year, but it wasn't that long. It was maybe a week of freezing and where you needed a winter coat. The rest of the time you can make do with just a fairly light jacket and rain gear.
Just a few layers and But I think the weather was kind to us, and we sort of hardly saw any rain, so that was that we were fortunate.
Yeah. The last thing I want to ask you about is you took a bus between Bordeaux and Spain, right?
And San-Sebastian, that's right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go ahead. You had a question?
Well, I'm wondering if what was the bus experience like?
The bus was good, and I'm glad you asked, because I wanted to share that. We had I had booked us on the train initially, but look, I'll just have to say that it was just one of those things. I don't know. I think I got a little bit of cold feet. It was just from meeting. The lovely, I mentioned the lovely Texans who we met in Nice.
Yeah.
They had actually been robbed on a train, catching a train from Lyon to Nice. And I was kind of, and you hear a story like that and you go, okay, well, we'll just need to be a little bit cautious. We might have to keep an eye on our luggage. But it made me kind of think of the option of catching the bus again, because I thought, well, just from catching that little bus into Marseille, the luggage goes underneath, and so I guess people don't have a lot of access to it.
No.
So I thought, well, that makes sense. So if the luggage is locked away underneath, and so I rescheduled that. I cancelled the train and booked us onto, it was Bus.
Yes.
And
that's actually the
great.
train. So this is interesting, because you were actually traveling with a train company, because Bus is owned by SNCF.
Right. Okay.
So it's the same company running both services.
Right. Yeah. Look, it was very comfortable. I said the only thing was that we had to leave at 8:30 in the morning. I think it was about 8 o'clock. We had to be at the bus stop, which is on a cold winter's morning. But But on the other hand, the train, if we'd caught the train from Bordeaux, that was in the late afternoon. And the downside to that would have been that we would have missed out on some of our time in San Sebastian. Yeah. So we gained time in Spain by catching the early morning bus. But the bus was very comfortable. It certainly wasn't full. It was probably only about, at most, a quarter full at times. And it's got Wi-Fi. The seats are very comfortable. You've got those big windows. And for us, it was like because it took us through that part of France that we didn't have the time to visit. So because a bus will take you right into the downtown of all these towns. So we went through to Dax, Bayonne, Biarritz, Saint-Jean-de-Luz, Hendaye. So we got like a little tour of all of these places by catching the bus.
Right, because what happens is the bus will go inside the city to pick up more passengers.
Yeah.
And so they travel on the freeway most of the time, but as soon as they get close to a city, they get off, go in the city. Yeah. Most of the time, the bus stops are close to the train station in most French cities. So you have to go right in the center and then back out and then to the next town. And so the bus is a little slower than the train typically, but not that much slower.
Not that much slower when I compared the timetables. So I would recommend that. I thought the bus was a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. And we could just sit at that stage. We could, we'd gotten rid of that car. We didn't have to be bothered with driving. We could just sit back and relax and look out the window. We did. We caught a train across sort of Spain, so we still got to do our train ride because we like trains as well. Yeah. So we went from San-Sebastian to Barcelona by train, and that was another opportunity to sort of kick back and relax and look out the window. Just some weeks of driving. Because the driving has its associated stresses.
Yes, it's good and it's bad. I mean, you have to park the car. You have to be messing with a different road system that you're not used to.
Yeah. So now so I would recommend the bus. I think that was a good thing to do.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Well, I have kept you for over 2 hours. I apologize. Normally we don't blab that long, but it's okay.
Well, you got two talkers together, so that's sorry for everybody else.
Well, and I love to hear about the details because it really helps people choose if they want to do this or not, Yeah. Because some of the people who are listening are going to think, oh, I totally want to go spend more time in Mirepoix now. And others are going to say, are you nuts? I'm never doing that, So
exactly.
It's great. It's great.
And obviously that your podcast had been a big aid to us in planning this trip, and so I just felt like it would be a good thing to give back as well.
Absolutely. Well, Christine, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
It's been delightful talking to you. Yeah, really fun.
Best wishes to you and John for your next trips. I don't know where you're going next, but it'll be fun.
We don't. Well, I think I might have told you in an email. Since we came back from France, we've been to New Caledonia for a week. So we've already had the next holiday since we did that one. So
I so want to go to New Caledonia. I so want to go there.
It was lovely. It was another week of sort of immersion in French language, French food.
This is France too. I mean, it's
France. It is France. Yeah. So it's that nice blend, though, of the sort of French culture, food and language, and also the islander culture as well, and the influences on the food, islander people.
Maybe if we do an episode on New Caledonia, I'll have to call you back and talk about that.
Absolutely. Happy to do that, yeah.
It's wonderful.
Because we drove there as well. We got a hire car there and we drove halfway up the island, and, yeah, it's great.
Excellent.
So I don't know what the next year. We'll have to stay home for a while now and pay the bills.
Very good.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Thank you so much.
All right, it's a pleasure.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye, Christine.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the show. To find out about tours offered by Elise and I, visit addictedtofrance.com. Please subscribe to the Join Us in France email list. It only goes out about once a month, but it is where you'll find out about our most recent episodes, and you'll also be the first to hear about promos we are running on the tours and anything else new we're cooking up. I invite you to look up the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook, a great place for folks who know a ton about France, exchange tips with those who are just starting to look into visiting France. À bientôt! Bye.